Hey guys, in this video I'm going over the power law of exponents. Now the power law states that if something is raised from a power to a power, you're going to multiply the exponents. And basically the way I teach is that if you see parentheses, you're going to be distributing, right? To get rid of those parentheses, and you're going to multiply the exponents together. Now, just like with regular distribution, right? 3x plus 3, for example, you do 3 times x. Remember that distribution is the operation of multiplication. Okay, now you might not have a calculator at home, so I'm going to help you with using Desmos. So with Desmos, to raise something to an exponent, you're going to have to use this button. I'm clicking it, it's highlighting, I promise your screen is not glitching out. It's that a to the b power. So if I wanted to figure out what 9 to the 6th power was, for example, I could do 9 and I raise it to the 6th power and I get 531,441. Okay, so last video I mentioned what bases were and what exponents were, so hopefully if you are still confused on that, you make sure you ask a question, let me know, and then refer to the last video if you're still struggling with that. But here we have 3 bases. We have 3, x, and y. Those are our 3 bases. Now, that means when I'm distributing this 3 exponent on the outside to get rid of that parentheses, I want to distribute it to every base. So, I'm going to do the first one here. I like to start from the back for some reason, I don't know why. Okay, so we have y, right? We're not doing 3 times y. You're going to multiply the exponents together. Why are we multiplying? Because it's like distributing. Distributing is the operation of multiplication. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, so 3 times 2. The next thing we have here is we're going to distribute it to the next base, which is x. Now, the exponent on the x is a 1, as mentioned in the last video. If it is not written, it is a 1. Okay, if it is a 0, it will say 0. I promise it is not 0. Okay, so 3 times 1 is going to be 3. And then lastly, we have 3 to the power of 3. Now, the most common mistake here is people do 3 times 3. Notice that I'm multiplying exponent to exponent. Is this 3 in the front an exponent? No. So you don't want to treat it like an exponent. It is actually 3 to the 3rd power, which is very different from 3 times 3, which I will show you. 3 times 3 is 9, but 3 to the 3rd power is 27. Completely different. So it is going to be 3 cubed. You don't want to leave this as your final answer. You want to actually write the 27 out. So you have 27 x cubed y to the 6th. Moving on to the second problem. Here, I see that there are parentheses and I want to get rid of them. Well, in order to get rid of them, I'm going to have to distribute that exponent that's on the outside, which is the 2. Now, I don't want to distribute it to the 4x in the front because it is not inside the parentheses, right? It's nothing to do with just the person standing outside the little parentheses house. Okay. So, first thing I'm going to do is I see the y, so that's the first base I see. Now here I have y, and then I'm going to multiply, because I'm distributing, I'm multiplying here. 2 times 2 is 4. The next base I see is the x. So then we have x, and then we have the raised to the power of 3. We're going to multiply the exponents together. 2 times 3 is 6. You're distributing, which is multiplying. I know I'm reiterating it a ton, but we struggle with this a lot. So that's why I'm going over and over and over again. Now here, again, you're not doing negative 3 times 2. It is negative 3 to the 2nd power. Now, here's the thing. What's negative 3 to the 2nd power really mean? What does it really mean? Well, negative 3 to the 2nd power means I'm doing negative 3 times negative 3, basically, right? Well, negative 3 times negative 3 is what? Positive 9. Well, let me show you something. Negative 3 raised to the 2. Well, Desmos is saying it's negative 9. That's completely wrong, isn't it? It is. So what's wrong? Sometimes when we have negative numbers, it is the safest thing to use parentheses because a calculator isn't always able to know what exactly you want it to do, right? So if I have a negative number, I want to do negative 3 in parentheses and then raise it to the 2nd power, okay? And then I get positive 9. So whatever that number is, you want to contain it in parentheses and then square it. Remember, it's not negative 3 times 2, it's negative 3 squared. Now, negative 3 squared is positive 9. So I kind of went over that already inside Desmos. Is this my final answer? Not quite, right? We forgot about the 4x, or hopefully you didn't forget, but I almost forgot about the 4x in the front. This is not our final answer. So, is this our final answer? No, we got to use the product law, which we learned in the previous assignment, to apply to this one. Now, you want to combine like bases to each other. So 4 and 9 are like bases because they're just regular numbers. 4 times 9 is 36. I am multiplying because there is a multiplication sign. The next base I would like to combine is the x. I see two x bases. Now the x here has an exponent of 1, even though it isn't written. Now would I add 1 and 6 or multiply 1 and 6? Here I would just add. There is no parentheses. I'm not distributing anything. Here I distribute, so I multiply. Here there is no distribution. So 1 plus 6 is 7. And lastly, we have just y to the 4th. There's no other y basis. You're going to leave it as is. Okay, now I know I'm going over my 5-minute mark just a little bit. I'm so sorry, but I wanted to make sure I was reiterating or making points to important things, right? Okay, the next thing is here we see there's a fraction, but should we treat it any different? No. Now I will show you how to put a fraction into Desmos after I go over this first step. So here I see 4 different bases, 8, x, y, and z. So I'm going to make sure when I distribute that 1/3, I do it to every base that I see. So here I'm going to do it to the z first. It's going to be z and then 9 times 1/3, right? We're multiplying. How do you type in a fraction? Well, you do 9 times, and I want to type in 1 divided by 3. So 1 divided by 3, and I get 3. So it's going to be to the 3rd power, y to the 24th times 1/3, to the 1/3, right? So it'll be y, and then 24 times a third is 8. And then we have x, 12 times a third is 4. Remember, we're multiplying here, not adding. And then lastly, we have our base of 8 here, 8 to the 1/3. You don't want to do 8 times a third because, again, 8 is not an exponent. You're not multiplying a base to an exponent. That doesn't make sense. It breaks a lot of laws. Well, what's 8 to the 1/3? We're going to type in the 8 and then use that A to the B button, right? I'm spamming it, so hopefully you can see it. And then 1/3, 1 divided by 3. And that gives me 2. So my final answer is 2, x to the 4th, y to the 8th, and z to the 3rd power. And that is